Montessori Grandma. Episode 1. The Story of Creation.
The Story of Creation, the first of Dr. Maria Montessori's great lessons, retold and presented by Geeta Vijayachandran. I made this PowerPoint presentation of the story of creation to help elementary teachers, traditional school educators, and children. Montessori had called the story God with No Hands, but in the present times, this name is not widely accepted. I've changed the name to something about nothing. In the beginning, it looked like there was nothing, but there was actually something. I've used AMI story as a guide and added on more facts that are suitable for older children. The experiments can be done as you say the story or after the story. An animated video for the story with experiments and charts is available. Something about nothing. I'm going to tell you a story that happened many years ago. It happened long ago, years before your parents were born, your grandparents were born, your great-grandparents were born, and their parents were born. It happened not 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years ago. It happened nearly 14 billion years ago. Yes, 14 billion years ago. When we look around us, we can see animals, a house with children, plants, flowers, a school with children, and a fish bowl. But there was once a time when all these things that we see did not exist. There were no buildings, no plants, no flowers, no animals, and no humans even. In fact, there was no life at all. Can you think of a place with no living things? The hills, the rivers, and the seas did not exist. There was no water, no stone, no sand, and no air. In fact, a long time ago, there was a time when even the earth was not there. There was no moon, no planets, and no galaxies. Even a sun was not there. There was nothing. It was dark, cold, and quiet. When we say dark, we think of the darkness that is there when the electricity goes off or the darkness on a new moon night. But that darkness is bright when compared to the darkness out in space. When we say cold, we think of ice or snow. But that cold is warm when compared to the cold of outer space. It was quiet, so still that there was absolutely no sound, just silence. It may have seemed that there was nothing in this dark, cold, silent space that was everywhere, but actually there was something, little particles. Tiny particles that were attracted to another and pull together. And as more and more pulled together, they created a stronger force. This force became stronger and stronger until all the particles of the entire universe came crashing together. All the particles finally crushed themselves into a small mass. A mass smaller than a marble. Imagine all of the particles of the universe, everything in every star, every galaxy, and every planet, all compressed into a body smaller than a marble. The gravity must have been a powerful force. It tied the particles together until it could not hold any more. And with a great explosive force, bang! It blew apart, and the particles spun out in this big bang. The Big Bang created two things, matter and energy. As the particles expanded in huge expansive spirals, they held the explosive fiery heat of this Big Bang, and it caused them to turn into a gaseous form. These gases expanded over hundreds, thousands, millions, and even billions of years. For almost 500,000 years, from the start of the Big Bang, the universe was very different. The universe was a very hot and sticky place made up of an infinite number of tiny particles of matter surrounded by just foggy gases. The tiny particles grouped together and formed protons, neutrons, and electrons, and these joined to create atoms. Tens of millions of years later, hydrogen and helium were formed. These elements joined together and started to form the first mass, that is, the stars and galaxies. About 1 billion years later, there were millions of other galaxies made up of millions of stars. The Milky Way is a galaxy that contains our solar system. Our solar system contains the sun, the planets, dwarf planets, moons, millions of asteroids, comets, and meteoroids. Our Earth was created from this expanding gaseous material that had totally come out of this big explosive bang. The universe had and has no fixed edge. It has been expanding ever since the Big Bang. This is a picture where you can see the Big Bang. The universe expands, matter created, protons and neutrons form, atoms form, stars appear, first galaxies, and the present is on the extreme right. The planet Earth seems large, even huge to us, but it's tiny compared to the sun. It seems like a little particle next to the gigantic sun. In fact, the sun is 1,000,000 times larger than the Earth. Although the Earth itself was formed at this time, it was nothing like the Earth we know today. The Earth was hot, as it was formed out of those terribly warm gases. The surface of the Earth must have been nothing but molten, boiling lava. The Earth was created with the birth of the solar system around 4.6 billion years ago. The Earth is not one solid piece, but is instead composed of a number of layers. Initially, it was just a ball of gases, but as the gases reacted with each other and materials of varying densities began separating, the Earth became what it is today. A huge rocky planet. How did the earth cool? We know that heavy things descend and light things rise. So, as the earth slowly cooled, the heavier things descended to the center of the earth, and the lighter things floated and came up to the top. This created an earth with a heavy, hot, molten center core and a surface of lighter rock and metals, also still hot and molten. Obeying the law, heat began to rise from the hot surface of the earth. At the same time, the gases that were in the atmosphere rose and began to cool. As it cooled, they descended and carried the heat away from the earth. It was like a dance of the atmosphere, a cosmic dance. Slowly, very slowly, this caused the earth to cool. But before it cooled, there were volcanoes. With a thin, mostly molten crust at the surface, that hot interior burst through the surface every once in a while. All over the earth, these volcanoes erupted, blasting out rocks and stone, lava, gases, and ash. This created thick clouds whose shadow cooled the earth a little. The entire sky darkened with ash that blotted out the sun. Finally, from those clouds that hovered above the surface of the earth, something happened. Raindrops fell. But the earth was too hot, and as the rain fell, it evaporated even before reaching the surface of the earth. As the rain fell, the surface of the earth began to cool even more. The water that fell evaporated, becoming a gas and creating more clouds above the earth. These clouds hid the sun and allowed earth to cool even more. It rained and rained. Finally, water did not evaporate but stayed on the surface of the earth. The water began to flow into all the lower places, making hot, muddy puddles, sludgy and dirty with ash. This formed our seas. This great world sea was shallow and warm. Volcanoes were still erupting all over the earth. The clouds became thinner due to the rains. The sun could now see the earth. The sky above, with its thin atmosphere, still did not have oxygen. It had a dilute atmosphere that was not dense enough to block out rays, cosmic dust, meteors, and other objects from space. This warm world sea was barraged with showers of particles from space, exposed to energy rays from the sun, and bombarded with meteorites that came from afar. This was our world about 3.8 billion years ago. Coming up from the water, here and there were the remnants of volcanoes. Other stones and rocks emerged, creating stony islands, even housing lakes. There was no soil, no plants, no animals, no life, just volcanic rock and sludgy, warm water. This was a place where life would begin. This was the era that set the stage for the time of living things. It must have looked like a great dirty shallow sea, filthy with ash, but richly filled with minerals. Even so, it was beautiful. It was like a cradle for life. The earth was ready to receive life. What happens next? Oh, that's another story. You will need to wait. Coming soon is the next story. The Coming of Life. There are 9 experiments that go with the story, and there are also some Montessori charts that you use when you say the story to the children. Thank you for watching. This is Geeta Vijaychandran signing off.
Montessori Grandma.